Hey guys.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 2 of Dating After Diagnosis. So throughout this episode, we are going to really be dialing in on my journey through chemotherapy. Mostly the physical and mental struggles that Lauren and I had to overcome, but also grew us as a stronger couple as well. Now, if you haven't seen episode 1 yet, first go to my channel, Mustaches for Matt, and check it out. It really kind of just describes how we met and leading up to my diagnosis.
So to start off, we're going to talk about the drugs that Matt was on as far as his treatment. So what comprised his chemo cocktail was etoposide, cisplatin, and bleomycin. He was treated by Dr. Timothy Gilligan at the Cleveland Clinic, who specializes in testicular cancer and is phenomenal at what he does. And the good thing is with testicular cancer is it has a very good prognosis. That is why there is no stage 4 with that particular cancer, because it's highly treatable. And so we always had a very positive outlook about the whole thing. It was just a matter of gotta get through it, and when we're done, smooth sailing from there. Every kind of cancer treatment is going to be handled differently. For Matt, they recommended that he go through chemo, and then that was in hopes to shrink the tumor in his small intestine. And then from there, he would have a surgery to remove it entirely. In some situations, they may recommend radiation. In other situations, the cancer is so early, they don't even need to do chemotherapy or radiation. They just say, we'll do the surgery and you should be good. So it just is going to depend. Matt's was further along because of where it developed in his body. He didn't have any obvious signs that he would have had it tested sooner. And that's all described in video 1. So Matt was on a routine where he received 5 rounds of chemotherapy over the course of about 3 or 4 months. And if you want to describe a little more about what that was like on a weekly basis.
So I was on 3 different drugs. They were called etoposide, cisplatin, and bleomycin. Now, each round consisted of about 2.5 weeks. And for 5 straight days, so Monday through Friday, I was on 2 drugs, cisplatin and etoposide, which really made me fatigued and nauseous. And on day 6 and 7, I had a little break, but those were actually the worst days because the drugs actually finally started to kick in. And really with chemotherapy, to kind of describe it for you guys, what chemotherapy does is it destroys all of your blood cells, so good and bad, and that's what causes your fatigue. That's what causes the, your nauseous feeling, all of these things, because it's just destroying every part of your body.
Your immune system.
Exactly. So that's why, it's people lose their hair and do all of these things because they're just, everything in their body is like kind of dying, but it's also killing the cancer cells as well. So day 6 and 7, the chemo would finally start to really kick in. I'd feel terrible. And then Monday, I would go in for 1 more day of chemotherapy, which was bleomycin. And then after that, I'd get about a 1.5 weeks rest. And as soon as I started feeling good again, I would go right back into more chemotherapy.
So these days were kind of hard because we didn't leave the house much. I basically lived at his parents' house because he couldn't go anywhere. He was just too nauseous all of the time. I feel like you were pretty fortunate in the respect that while he always felt nauseous, he rarely, if ever, actually got sick. And he did take Zofran, which is pretty often, which helped with the nausea.
Yeah, I was on top of it like crazy. Like every day I took it because if I didn't, I knew that one slip up would cause kind of any type of me eating or whatever to really it would be really difficult for me to eat, and I would get extremely nauseous all the time for sure.
It also changes your taste buds, so you went through that a little bit, but you still had a fairly good appetite considering the treatment, so we were pretty glad about that. His chemo cocktail was very toxic, and the doctor will have to customize that treatment plan to each individual person because your body's condition or your strength or your age, there's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Yeah.
But Matt was really strong going in, and he was a young male in his mid-20s, so the
that's why they put me on such a high dose of chemotherapy,
Yeah,
and for
so
so
it was
many
a
rounds.
lot in a short period of time.
Because they wanted my tumor to shrink is to pretty much as small as it could possibly be, so that when I was going to have the surgery, it wouldn't be as difficult to remove that tumor. And along the way, I had a lot of complications that really challenged us, not just physically for me. Like I said, I was nauseous and really fatigued all the time, but a lot of mental hurdles as well. And number one was definitely losing my hair. And if you know anyone, which almost every single person knows somebody who's gone through some type of like chemotherapy or cancer, and losing your hair is really difficult because it can define you for so long, especially seeing I had red hair. Everybody knew me, and you know, my red hair kind of did define me. So losing that was a mental struggle, but having Lauren and my friends and my family really to just support me and always give me that positive feedback really did help me a lot.
And then also what was tough was Matt's dog Duke was battling cancer before Matt was ever diagnosed, and every week Matt was the one to take him. He was on chemotherapy too, so Matt would take him to the vet every week to receive his medicine, and it really helped prolong his life. But unfortunately, Duke passed away while Matt was going through chemotherapy.
Yeah, and it hit me really hard for a good week. I was really down on myself. I was making excuses. I didn't want to go to chemotherapy. I wasn't eating as much. I didn't go for the walks I needed to. And really through my support system, especially Lauren, who really pushed me to just keep pushing forward and use Duke as somebody to actually complete my chemotherapy for, instead of saying, you know, why did this happen to me? It really helped me to change my mindset, and I started getting right back on track with what I needed to do to complete my final stages of chemotherapy.
And then another thing too was Matt, for the longest time, was receiving chemotherapy intravenously in his arms. And usually when people start chemo, the doctors just say, let's go ahead and put a port in your chest that will help administer that without causing a lot of pain and really damaging your veins. But they felt like Matt was very vascular and he could probably handle it. So for the longest time, he was getting it in his arms, but it reached a point where the nurses were unable to get blood return.
Yeah.
And it was really painful and uncomfortable. They were pricking him again and again and again, trying to get it started.
Yeah, long story short, I was on my 4th round, and I was on day 8. So that, like I said before, 5 straight days, 2 days off where I felt like the worst, and then day 8, you don't feel much better. I was actually, my mom was taking me in on a wheelchair that day, and I was getting my bleomycin, and they missed my vein like 5 times. They didn't technically miss the vein, but they couldn't get any blood return out of any of them. So I was literally on the verge of passing out. I remember seeing stars, and my oncologist came in and he said, we're gonna have to get a port. And I was just like super pissed because I was almost done, and I didn't want to have a surgery, especially for how fatigued I was at the time. But, you know, after a couple of days, I got it done, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I actually was able to just, first time I go in, they prick me, I'm done, I'm getting my chemotherapy, no stress, and it was really a battle before that. So that was a hurdle, but also something that came out to be a lot better for me.
And even though chemo was almost complete, it was really beneficial that he had that, because as you'll see in videos to come, Matt had a lot of complications after surgery where they continued to access that port for a long, long time to come. So it is such a blessing that we got it after all, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't recommend it earlier.
Yeah.
So
eventually, after that, I finished my last round of chemo, and it was probably one of the most gratifying days of my life to ring the bell. And what you do, the ringing the bell basically signifies that you finished all of your rounds of chemotherapy. And why I was so grateful was because these past 3 months just was a storm that hit me without knowing what was going on. I mean, I was a fit personal trainer 5 months ago to being diagnosed with cancer, getting put on all of these different drugs.
you lost a lot of weight.
I lost about 40 pounds throughout it, and a lot of muscle too. And to really complete this part of my journey, my perspective on life, so definitely changed. I had a different viewpoint of first my support system, like I keep bringing up, because I realized that I needed them more than I could ever imagine. And then number two was just being grateful for life, being grateful for the daily things that we take for granted and that I couldn't do for so long, because you're getting put on this nasty drug and you get diagnosed with something you're not aware of. So I was super grateful, definitely changed my perspective, and Lauren will tell you a cool story a couple days later, which was my birthday actually.
Yeah, as Matt was finishing his chemotherapy, his friends secretly had planned a surprise party for him, and it was so special. We went to dinner as a family, and afterwards we're like, let's have a nightcap. It's not like Matt can really drink much, but let's just have a drink and call it a night. So we go to the new rooftop bar that had just opened, and we had to take the elevator to the top. When we got up there and the doors opened, there were probably 50 of his close friends gathered around, and it was so heartwarming. I know I cried, but I cry about everything. So it was just like really, really special and a great way to say we're done and happy 25th birthday, happy, quarter of a decade, quarter of a century. So that was awesome. And then even more of a great turnout was Mustaches for Matt, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so after my birthday, pretty much a week later, my dad decided to host an event, and it was on Thanksgiving morning. Every morning, Cleveland, Ohio hosts what's called a turkey trot. It's a 5 and 10K race where thousands of people come to this race, but my dad wanted to host an event to just kind of bring awareness, but also to celebrate my completion of chemotherapy. We didn't know how many people were going to show up, and he ended up naming it Mustaches for Matt.
So to clarify too, I think this needs a little bit...
I was going to go into it, but keep going. You're good.
Well, I was just going to say that his dad organized a group of people to join in the turkey trot in support of Matt. So everybody wore matching shirts that said Mustaches for Matt. He'll explain why.
Yeah.
But it was really just the gathering of everybody, so an event at the turkey trot.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, and people ran the race, some didn't. But the reason why it was called Mustaches for Matt was because when I was going through chemotherapy, I lost my red hair about probably 1.5 sessions in, but I kept this dirty mustache, and it was bad. But instead of Lauren and my friends and my family and my parents making fun of me, which they obviously weren't going to do, all the guys decided to grow mustaches throughout my whole entire chemotherapy session. And it was just really cool to see that support. And girls, once we got to that race, we provided fake mustaches for them. We gave everybody shirts. We didn't know how many people exactly were going to show up. And when I got there on Thanksgiving morning, we had over 400 people show up to this event on Thanksgiving morning. Just absolutely crazy. I was shocked.
It was so emotional.
Crazy emotional.
Matt spoke and his dad spoke, and again, tears in my eyes, just because there was so much he'd overcome, and to see all the people who came out to support him on the holiday when it's freezing cold, on the morning when everybody was out drinking the night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It was just really cool. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and it really goes to show, and this is a really good lesson for anybody, is you need support when you're going through difficult times. No matter what you're going through, you absolutely need some type of support. And for me, having that support was like so important to me, because without that support, I know for a fact it would have been really difficult for me to go through that chemotherapy and face those mental hurdles, and also physically as well.
So that about wraps up everything from diagnosis to chemo. And our next video, we're going to elaborate more on surgery, and that might have to be broken up into maybe 2 to 3 parts, because there's so much
Probably
from surgery
a 3
on.
part. Yeah, we'll talk about me going after this event. We'll talk about me going to the doctor, what his diagnosis was after that, leading up to a surgery, and the complications that involved with the surgeries as well, and how me and Lauren had to deal with this as a couple.
Yeah, I think right now in these early videos, we're really just trying to bring everybody up to speed on the timeline and when things happened. And then after we've established that, I think we can really get into more of the details emotionally of what was going on in our hearts and in our minds and all the pressure and the worry that we experienced.
Yeah,
So.
we'll get more into detail about a lot of that stuff, but for now, just giving you guys the details and kind of sharing it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so we're open to feedback. If there's anything that you want to hear from us,
Comment down below.
Yep, any questions, any comments. Hopefully this can help you in some way, or if you know someone that can benefit, please share.
Yeah, please share, subscribe, and we will see you guys in episode 3.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye, guys.
2 seconds later.
Don't kick me like that, because I wanted to share one lesson for like 30 seconds. Like literally,
I wasn't kicking you. I was
you
going like
kept
this.
rubbing me and
Because
I
you-
was getting pissed off. It took 12 seconds. Lauren, you went into so much detail, which was fine, but some of the stuff in the beginning, you didn't have to say some of that stuff either, but I just let you go. Just let me go.
Because
Please just let me go, because it's gonna fuck me up if I don't. And I was already starting to screw up because you kept rubbing me.
yes, because you had already gone into the whole support thing in this same video earlier in the video.
No, you were
yes,
thinking of
did.
a different
No,
time.
it wasn't.
Yes.
No, we talked about support.
And then I talked about it in a different sense. I talked about it as a
No, but it's
lesson,
common
Lauren.
sense. Of course, have
Great,
support.
people need to learn lessons sometimes, Lauren. I can.
It's okay, but
It
you
was
just go
25
on.
seconds.
You go on.
No, I didn't. It was 25 seconds.
Okay, but what was the first support lesson? How long was that?
I don't even think I talked about support in the first one. Just support me. A support system to see that support. You need support. My support system, like I keep bringing up, because just let me go. All I'm asking is to let me go. Like, you just don't rub me, because it's gonna mess up the video. Right? That's all I ask.